Chair Pryor, would you like to move House File 3782 before the committee?
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Now that the bill is before us, please move forward.
Thank you for the introduction. Thank you, members, for allowing me to present our bill. And I think the most efficient thing to do is at this point turn it over to nonpartisan Ms. Para for a walkthrough of what's in the bill.
Wonderful. Ms. Para.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, committee members. Christina Para from House Research, and I'll be walking you through the DE2 that's before you. Article 1 is the general education article. Section 1 allows an educational agency or institution to share personal student contact information and directory information for students in special education with the Department of Employment and Economic Development to coordinate services to students with disabilities. Section 2 requires the district to make reasonable efforts to accommodate a student who wishes to be excused for a curricular activity for an American Indian cultural practice, observance, or ceremony. Section 3 requires districts and charter schools to adopt a policy on students' possession and use of cell phones in schools by March 15, 2025, and requires the principals associations to make best practices available to schools on strategies to minimize the impact of cell phones on student behavior, mental health, and academic attainment. Sections 3 and 4 are for the Online Instruction Act, and Section 4 adds a reference to federal law, while Section 5 adds back language that was dropped when the language was recodified last year. Section 6 requires the commissioner to establish clear criteria for evaluating a district's application to use a 4-day school week plan, accept applications for a 4-day week plan at least annually, and determine whether an application meets the criteria. And then once the plan is approved, that would remain in effect for at least 6 years. Section 7 substitutes references to desegregation plans with references to achievement and integration plans, adds a cross-reference to a statutory definition of acquisition in the chapter on municipal debt, and modifies review and comment requirements for construction projects. Section 8 is a revisor instruction to remove the term state-approved in several sections. Article 2 is the education excellence article. Section 1 strikes language relating to the SHAPE standards, which are used for physical education. Sections 2 and 3 relate to the language seals that students can obtain. Section 2 modifies the description of proficiency required for a proficiency certificate, and Section 3 modifies the description of how proficiency is measured to qualify for a seal. It allows a student to obtain a seal for showing proficiency in an Indigenous American Indian language. It strikes the requirement that a student demonstrate mastery of English language proficiency to obtain a seal, and requires the commissioner to establish guidelines on interpreting scores or ratings from approved assessments. Section 4 delays the requirement that students complete a civics course in grade 11 or 12 by 1 year, and modifies the credit requirement for physical education. Sections 5, 6, and 7 relate to the world's best workforce. Section 5 adds a definition of on track for graduation. Section 6 adds performance measures for the 2025 to 2026 school year and later in the plan to include participation in honors or gifted and talented programming and students on track for graduation, and requires districts to report on participation and performance on advanced placement, international baccalaureate, and dual enrollment programs. It also requires reporting on performance measures for student subgroups. Section 7 requires the plan to include a language access plan to provide effective language assistance starting in the 2025-2026 school year. Sections 8 to 13 relate to statewide assessments. And this is, last year the legislature recodified the statutes on state assessments, so these make changes based on that recodification. Section 8 changes a cross-reference based on the recodification. Section 9 strikes language on accommodations that appears in another section. Section 9 prohibits retaliation against an employee who discloses information to the commissioner about service disruptions, and that's language that is currently in a separate section. Section 11 strikes language that is in other sections or is obsolete and adds language from other sections relating to general requirements for tests and test design. Section 12 also strikes language that's in other sections, and also strikes the requirement that commissioner report data comparing performance results among school sites, districts, Minnesota and other states, and Minnesota and other nations. Strikes the requirement that the commissioner determine the testing process and aggregate data at the site and district level. Section 13 also strikes a requirement relating to how the student data is aggregated and disaggregated. Section 14 modifies the deadline for the department to post school performance reports on the department website. Section 15 relates to student journalism. It defines specific terms. It states that a student journalist has a right to exercise freedom of speech and freedom of the press in student-sponsored media, prohibits the school district from disciplining a student journalist for exercising those rights, and protects a student media advisor for supporting a student journalist exercising free speech rights. It also lists conduct that is not protected and requires districts and charter schools to adopt and post a student journalist policy. Section 16 to 23 modify the Post-Secondary Enrollment Options Act, or PSEO. Section 16 adds facilitating career preparation to the list of purposes of PSEO. Section 17 requires a post-secondary institution to notify a pupil's school as soon as practicable if the student withdraws or has been absent for 10 consecutive days and not receiving instruction at home, in a hospital, or another facility. Section 18 modifies the deadline for the student to inform a district of the intent to enroll in PSEO. Section 19 eliminates limits on how a post-secondary institution may recruit or solicit a secondary pupil, and eliminates some obsolete language. Section 20 requires secondary schools and post-secondary institutions that enroll students in concurrent enrollment courses to report certain information to the commissioner. Section 21 requires the advisory board of a post-secondary institution offering courses taught by a secondary teacher to include secondary and post-secondary students, if practical. Section 22 limits activities or opportunities that a student can't be barred from for participating in PSEO. Section 23 requires a district to adopt the same weighted grade point average policy for credits earned via PSEO as for concurrent enrollment. Section 24 modifies the deadline for providing notice to the parents of an English learner that the student is enrolled in an instructional program for English learners. Section 25 requires a district to provide English learners language development instruction designed to effectively increase the language proficiency of English learners, and that addresses Minnesota's English language development standards and rules. Section 26 repeals provisions relating to assessments, again related to that recodification. Article 3 is the teacher's article. Section 1 modifies the requirements for a Tier 1 license in special education. And I'm just going to note that it's rewritten a little bit from what was heard in committee. Items 2 and 3, so on page 32, starting at line 16, it's the district or charter school affirms that the applicant will receive the professional development required there. And on line 19, that the district or charter school affirms that the applicant will participate in the supervision program. And then the limitation of 3 years is a separate paragraph starting on line 23. Section 2 clarifies the exemption for Tier 1 teachers to hold a bachelor's degree. Section 3 is the special education license for Tier 2 teachers, making similar changes as for Tier 1, with the district or charter school affirming that the applicant will receive the professional development and supervision required. Section 4 modifies the requirements for using the portfolio process to obtain a Tier 3 license. Section 4 expands eligibility for a Tier 4 license to include a teacher who obtained a Tier 3 through portfolio or holds a national board certification. Section 6 allows a teacher who obtained national board certification to obtain a Tier 3 or 4 license without taking pedagogy or content exams. Section 7 strikes the skills exam from a provision requiring testing accommodations. Section 8 prohibits a district or charter school from placing a teacher in a teaching assignment if the teacher has been charged criminally with certain offenses. Sections 9 or 10 are the same. One is for districts in the first class, the other for other districts, and it's requiring the teacher evaluation rubric to be based on the standards of effective practice that are in rule. That change would be in effect starting July 1, 2025. Sections 11 and 12 relate to the Heritage and Language Culture Teachers section. Section 11 modifies the definition of heritage, language, and culture teacher to require the teacher to be proficient in the language and engaged in the culture, and includes certain American Sign Language teachers as the heritage, language, and culture teachers. Section 12 requires the program to support heritage, language, and culture teachers to prioritize the participation of teachers whose own heritage language is one of the top languages spoken by Minnesota students, and for which there are fewer teacher prep programs for that licensure area or fewer teachers that hold a license in that area. Section 13 allows, this is for the mentorship grant that's administered by Pelsby, and it allows a tribal contract school or group of schools, a coalition of districts, teachers, and teacher education institutions to apply for a mentorship grant. And Section 14 repeals the alternative teacher preparation provider report and the remedial provision on remedial assistance for the skills examination. That is going on to Article 4, Special Education, has 2 sections. The first one allows the district to conduct an assessment for developmental adapted physical education as a standalone evaluation without doing the comprehensive evaluation, but allows the parent to request a comprehensive evaluation of the student. And Section 2 establishes the Special Education Licensure Reciprocity Working Group. Article 5 is the charter school article. The Section 1 modifies the statement declaring the purpose of charter schools. It requires a charter school to identify the purposes it will address in the charter contract and document the implementation of those purposes in the annual report. Adds implementation of the purposes to the authoriser's performance review of the school. Section 2 modifies 3 definitions, those of charter management organizations, educational management organizations, and immediate family. Section 3 strikes reference to a charter school plan under the World's Best Workforce and requires charter schools to comply with certain statutes on student discipline. Section 4 modifies the duties of the authorizer. It requires an authorizer to ensure the schools that are authorized have autonomy, fulfill the purposes of the charter school, and are accountable under the terms of the charter contract. It also adds responsibilities relating to approving or denying applications and oversight and evaluation of the school's performance and other duties. It also requires the authorizer to document staff's completion of training requirements. Section 5 clarifies that the process applies to an organization rather than an authorizer when they're applying to be authorizers. Section 6 modifies the duties of the commissioner related to the review of the authorizer's performance. It prohibits the commissioner from penalizing an authorizer for not chartering additional schools or for the absence of complaints against an authorizer. Section 7 strikes the requirement that a charter school include a statement of assurances of legal compliance. Section 8 strikes the requirement that the authorizer's affidavit state how the authorizer intends to oversee the performance of the charter school in compliance with the terms of the charter. It requires grades and number of primary enrollment sites to be reviewed under a separate subdivision, which is the next one, adding grades or sites, and that modifies the requirements for charter schools to add grades or enrollment sites and reorganizes some of the existing requirements. Section 10 is the Board of Directors statute and makes a number of changes to each subdivision. So the first one is it requires the initial Board of Directors and school developers to comply with training requirements upon incorporating the school. Subdivision 2 modifies the requirements for transitioning to the ongoing board. Subdivision 3 modifies the board membership criteria. in particular for the teacher on the board, and prohibits an administrator or supervisor from serving on the board, and also prohibits a person from serving on more than one charter school board at a time. Subdivision 4 modifies the requirement for changing the board's governing structure, so it would require majority vote in favor of the change by the school's teachers. Subdivision 5 requires the board to establish and publish election policies and procedures and provide eligible voters information about candidates at least 10 calendar days before the election. Subdivision 6 requires the board to adopt a nepotism policy. It states what the requirements of the policy would be. Subdivision 7 modifies the training requirements, and Subdivision 8 requires meeting minutes to be posted within 30 days of the board approval or the next regularly scheduled meeting. Section 11 requires the school to disclose to the commissioner any potential contract, lease, or purchase of service from a board member, employee, contractor, volunteer, or agent of an authorizer. Section 12 requires hearing on an authoriser's decision to not renew or terminate the contract. That has to be recorded by audio or video or court reporter, and the authorizer would have to preserve that recording for 3 years and make it available to the public. Section 13 limits mutual non-renewal process to only charter schools that are already serving enrolled students, so it wouldn't apply before the charter school opened. Section 14 requires a staff member to be employed for at least 480 hours in a school calendar year to qualify for the enrollment process, preference that's available to staff members' children. Expands the prohibition on providing incentives to parents to enroll students, and modifies the list of conditions for determining when a student formally withdraws from a charter school. Section 15 prohibits a charter school from contracting with a CMO or EMO to provide necessary teachers unless it's a cooperative. Section 16 requires charter schools to establish qualifications for persons that hold administrative, academic supervision, or instructional leadership positions. It has certain minimum qualifications, prohibits an administrator from serving as a paid administrator or consult with another charter school unless the board approves it, and prohibits the charter school administrator from serving on another charter school board. Section 17 prohibits a charter school employee or board member from serving on the board of the school's authorizer, and requires an employee or school board member to disclose any paid compensation received from an authorizer. Section 18 relates to the charter school audit reports, and it strikes the requirement that a charter school comply with statutes governing contracting. Appears in a new section, in the last section of the article. Section 19 requires charter schools to disseminate particular information about the school's offering and enrollment procedures to families that reflect the diversity of Minnesota's population and targeted groups. And Section 20, this is where that information, those requirements about investing in municipal contracting are added, and that requires a charter school to adopt a procurement policy before expending state funds. There are requirements for what that policy has to include, including a threshold for employee purchases, and allows the commissioner to reduce a charter school's state aid in an amount equal to a purchase that's not in conformity with the procurement policy, or if there is no procurement policy, and requires a charter school to comply with statutes governing government property and financial investments and municipal contracting. Article 6, Nutrition and Libraries, has 2 sections. The first modifies the eligibility to become a sponsor for the Federal Child and Adult Care Food Program or the Federal Summer Food Service Program. And Section 2 allows the Metropolitan Library Service Agency to employ an executive director who does not hold a master's degree in library and science. Article 7 is Health and Safety. Section 1 relates to mental health education. Currently, there's an encouragement that districts and charter schools provide mental health instruction for students in grades 4 to 12. And this section changes that encouragement to a requirement starting in the 26-27 school year. Section 2, starting October 1, 2024, requires a district or charter school, to the extent space is available, to provide secondary school students with access to space to receive mental health care through telehealth. It requires secondary schools to develop a plan with procedures to receive requests for access to the space, and it must provide student privacy to receive mental health care. Sections 3 and 4 relate to the administration of drugs and medicine in schools. Section 3 modifies the exceptions to the requirements for the administration of drugs and medicine by including licensed nurses as personnel that may determine that drugs or medicine should be given without delay. Section 4 modifies the list of persons a district must consult with regarding the administration of drugs and medicine. Section 5 allows registered nurses and licensed practical nurses to administer epinephrine auto-injectors in a school setting according to a condition-specific protocol. And Section 6 clarifies the age range of students with regards to whom the department investigates maltreatment investigations. Article 8 is the state agencies article. Section 1 moves the Pelsby report on increasing teachers of color and American Indian teachers from the odd-numbered years to the even-numbered years after the first report is submitted by November 3rd, 2025. Section 2 modifies the deadline for a department to submit a report on rigorous course taking. The 2025 report would be required to include data from the 22-23 and 23-24 school years. Section 3 strikes requirements from the health services specialist position at the Department of Education. Section 4 modifies the deadline for Pelsby's teacher supply and demand report and modifies data that must be included in the report. Section 5 authorizes Pelsby to collect non-licensed staff data on behalf of the department and requires the department to manage the data. Sections 6, 7, and 8 relate to the interstate compact on educational opportunity for military children. So they move those responsibilities out of the P20 partnership and into a standalone military interstate children's compact state council. And then Section 8 states the provisions of that compact apply to minor dependent children of members of the active and activated reserve components of the uniformed services. And Mr. Chair and Committee, that's the DE2.
Thank you, Ms. Barra, for the walkthrough. We'll now move to member questions for clarification. Just a quick note that our full member discussion will be held during our hearing tomorrow following public testimony. Any clarification questions? Representative Bennett.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I do have a clarification question. Wondering if, with the changes in testing in parts of this bill, specifically on page 20, I believe, is there anything that would stop MDE from posting the results, on the report cards that schools get, allowing schools and districts, to post those so the public can see and compare schools and districts? Anything that would impair MDE from posting this information in the testing changes?
Ms. Barra.
Mr. Chair, Representative Bennett, the deadline is moved, so MDE wouldn't have to post the information until later, I think December. Currently, the deadline is September. But I think the department could probably better speak to these provisions.
Mr. Chair, if I could
Please.
point out the line. So starting at about line 20.19, somewhere in there, correct? Yeah. That area.
Ms. Barra.
Mr. Chair, Representative Bennett, I believe the commissioner could still report that. I'm not aware of there being data comparing school sites, for example, to other nations. On the report card, some comparison to districts and statewide data is available. But again, I believe the department could probably speak to that better.
Representative Bennett.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. If the department could speak to that, that would be great. If somebody's here that would have that answer now, or they can. Perfect. Or you could get it to me later if you don't have that now, sorry.
Ms. Ariola, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Representative Bennett, just so I'm clear, we're talking about the changes in Article 2, Section 2, beginning on line 20.9, the stricken language, is that correct? My what I understand about these sections is these are meant to be strictly rearranging, cleaning up statute. So that stricken language, I do believe, should appear at another point in these sections, but I would need a moment to find exactly where that lives. These provisions around updating and streamlining section 120B.3 were meant to be purely technical and have no implementation impact. Oh, Megan Adiola from the Department of Education. Sorry, I keep forgetting to identify myself.
Thank you. Any other clarification questions? Seeing none, I motion to lay over House File 3782, and we will get the gavel back.
I'll just, if
Oh,
I can make a
closing
comment
comment?
at this point. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Please.
Just as we get to this point, I appreciate the members' patience as we walk through this bill. Also, it's at another point where we should reflect how much and how many people contribute to this bill. That right now, my name is on it as an author, but there is a composite of work that was done for this, and even putting together is a composite of work. So thank you for all the folks, and particularly our nonpartisan staff that did an incredible amount of work and has always doing an incredible amount of work in very short time frames and, you know, beyond normal working days. And we are so deeply grateful for the quality of people that choose to do this work and stay with this work as we work, you know, as we do what we're trying to do for the students in Minnesota. So both our nonpartisan staff, thank you very much for what you have done. Thank you also for the staff that has worked for me, my partisan staff, and the work that you have done. And of course, thank you for all of the bill authors for what is in the bill or will be in the bill before we're through, and the work that you did bringing this forward. And we do look forward to the comments that we'll hear tomorrow from the members of the public, and we'll take those comments seriously. This is still a work in process, and we'll look forward to the discussion and the feedback that we'll be getting.
Thank you, Chair Pryor. Again, motion to lay over House File 3782